Why you must read. Beginner level. Reading is one of the best things you can do if you want to improve your English. Many students ask me the same question. They say, "Teacher, what is the quickest way to learn English?" Some people think the answer is grammar. Some people think it's speaking. Some people think it's watching movies. All these things are useful, but if I can give only one piece of advice, I always say the same thing. Read each and every day. Read simple English. Read for fun. Read because you enjoy it. This simple habit can change your English little by little. One day you will look back and say, "Wow, my English is much improved now." The best part is that reading doesn't feel like hard work when you choose something you enjoy. I remember one of my students many years ago. His name was Sam. Sam wanted to speak English very well. Each and every day he studied grammar for 2 hours. He wrote many notes. He learned many rules. But when he tried to speak, he stopped every few seconds. He was always thinking. He was always worried about mistakes. Then I gave him a very simple job. I said, "Stop studying grammar for 1 hour each and every day. Use that hour to read simple English stories." Sam was surprised. He thought I was joking. He believed grammar was everything. Still, he trusted me. He began reading every evening before he went to bed. At first, he could read only several pages. Sometimes he didn't understand every word, but he kept reading. After several months, something astonishing happened. His speaking became smoother. He knew more words. He understood more English. He smiled more because English didn't feel scary anymore. Reading changed him. Many students think reading means reading challenging books. That's not true. In fact, challenging books can graduate you down. Imagine you're riding a bicycle. If the road is too full of large rocks, you can't ride smoothly. You stop again and again. Reading works the same way. If every sentence has many new words, your brain becomes tired. You stop every minute. You open the dictionary again and again. Soon you feel bored. You close the book. That's not the kind of reading you need. Instead, choose books that are simple for you. Choose stories where you understand most of the words. Maybe you know 95 words out of 100. That's marvelous. Your brain can enjoy the story. At the same time, it quietly learns the few new words. Learning becomes natural. It feels almost like magic. You're learning, but you don't always notice it. Let me tell you a funny story. Imagine I give you this sentence. The delighted dog runs after the little ball. You understand it easily. Now, imagine I change some words. The delighted dog runs after the flibble snarp. What is a flibble? What is a snarp? You have never heard these words before, but you probably think the dog is running after some kind of object. Maybe it's a toy. Maybe it's a ball. You can guess because you understand the rest of the sentence. Your brain is very smart. It uses the words around the new word to find the meaning. This is how reading assists you learn vocabulary. You don't always need a dictionary. Your brain likes to solve little puzzles. Now, imagine something very different. Flibble snarp crindle moper drintle. You probably understand nothing. There are too many strange words. Your brain can't guess the meaning. This is why simple reading is so significant. You need enough simple words around the new word. Then, your brain has clues. A clue is something that assists you find the answer. Reading gives your brain these clues each and every day. Scientists have studied reading for many years. They found something interesting. The brain becomes powerfuler when it sees words many times. 1 time is usually not enough. 10 times may not be enough. But when you meet the same word again and again in different stories, your brain begins to remember it. You don't force yourself to remember. It happens naturally. This is one reason why children become great readers. They see common words many times. Adults can learn the same way. Think about the word window. You may read it in one story about a house. Then you see it again in a story about a school. Later you read about someone looking out of a train window. Every time you meet the word, it becomes a bit powerfuler in your memory. One day you hear someone say, "Please open the window." You understand immediately. You don't stop to think. The word has become part of your English. Reading also teaches you grammar without long grammar lessons. This surprises many students. They think grammar only comes from grammar books. But grammar is really a pattern. A pattern is something that happens again and again. When you read many sentences, your brain begins to notice these patterns. You read, "She goes to school." Then later you read, "He goes to work." Then, "My friend goes home." After seeing this pattern many times, your brain begins to understand it. You may not even know the grammar rule, but you know what sounds right. This is how children learn their first language. They don't study grammar books when they are 2 years old. They listen. They read simple books later. They hear the same patterns many times gradually. They begin to use them. We can learn a second language in a similar way. Of course, grammar books are useful, but reading gives life to grammar. It shows grammar in real sentences. Reading assists your writing, too. If you want to become an improved writer, you must first become a better reader. Every book teaches you something. Maybe it teaches you how to begin a story. Maybe it teaches you how to describe a person. Maybe it teaches you how to end a story. Little by little, these ideas become part of your own writing. I often tell my students to imagine cooking. If you want to cook delicious food, you need great ingredients. Words are like ingredients. Sentences are like recipes. Reading fills your kitchen with many marvelous ingredients. Then, when you want to write or speak, you already have many words ready to use. Another marvelous thing about reading is confidence. Many English learners feel nervous. They think their English is poor. They compare themselves with other people. They worry about every mistake. Reading changes this feeling. Every page you complete tells your brain something significant. It says, I can do this. Every chapter gives you a little success. Little successes become large confidence. I remember another student named Maria. She always said, Teacher, I am too gradual. She believed everyone else was smarter than her. I asked her to read only 10 minutes each and every day. Not 1 hour, not 2 hours, only 10 minutes. She laughed because it sounded too simple. After 6 months, she came back with a large smile. She had completed several simple books. She said, Now I believe I can learn English. Her English was improved, but something even more significant had changed. She believed in herself. A great many folks think they don't have enough time to read. Let us think about that for a moment. Do you watch videos each and every day? Do you look at your phone many times? Do you wait for the bus? Do you sit in a waiting room? These little moments are perfect for reading. You don't need a whole afternoon. Even 10 or 15 minutes each and every day can make a large difference over 1 year. Imagine putting one little coin into a jar each and every day. One coin doesn't look significant, but after 1 year, the jar is full. Reading works the same way. 1 page today, 2 pages tomorrow, 3 pages next week. Gradually your English grows. Growth is often quiet. You may not notice it each and every day, but after many months, the change is simple to see. Some students worry because they read gradually. Please don't worry. Gradual reading is still reading. A little tree doesn't become tall in one night. It grows a bit each and every day. Your English grows the same way. The significant thing isn't speed. The significant thing is that you keep reading. Choose books that make you smile. Choose stories about things you enjoy. If you like animals, read about animals. If you like adventure, read adventure stories. If you like love stories, read love stories. Interest is significant. When you enjoy the story, you forget that you're studying. Learning becomes fun. Sometimes you will find a challenging word. Don't stop every time. Clears throat. First, try to guess the meaning. Read the next sentence. Read the sentence before it. Often the story gives you enough information. If the word is truly essential and you still don't understand, then check the dictionary. But don't let the dictionary stop the story every minute. Another great idea is to read the same book more than once. Many clears throat. Students think this is strange. They say, I already know the story. Exactly. Because you know the story, your brain can pay more attention to the English. The second time feels easier. The third time feels even easier. You notice new words and new grammar that you missed before. Reading aloud can also assist. When you read aloud, your eyes, your mouth, and your ears work together. You see the words. You say the words. You hear the words. This gives your brain more practice. You don't need to read every page aloud. Even 5 minutes is useful. Please remember one truly essential thing. Don't read because someone forces you. Read because you want to become an improved version of yourself. Read because every page opens a new door. Read because every story teaches you something about people and about life. English isn't only a school subject, it's a way to meet new ideas, new cultures, and new friends. Years ago, I loved reading one simple English story every night before bed. At first, I understood almost everything because the books were simple. After many weeks, I noticed something interesting. I was thinking in English more often. Little English sentences came into my mind without any effort. I didn't plan this. It happened because my brain was full of English each and every day. That experience taught me a significant lesson. Reading isn't only about books. Reading changes the way you think. So, if you ask me again, what should I do to improve my English? My answer is still the same. Read each and every day. Read simple books. Read stories that make you delighted. Read without fear. Read without trying to be perfect. Some days you will understand more. Some days you will understand less. That's normal. Keep turning the pages. Keep enjoying the journey. One page becomes one chapter. One chapter becomes one book. One book becomes many books. Many books become improved vocabulary. Improved vocabulary becomes better speaking. Improved speaking becomes more confidence. More confidence opens new opportunities in your life. Your future English is waiting for you. It begins with the next page you read. So, open the book today. Read a bit. Smile a bit. Learn a bit. Tomorrow, do it again. One day, you will be surprised by how far you have come. And when that day arrives, you will understand something truly essential. Reading didn't only improve your English. Reading changed your life. Transition and vocabulary guide. I hope you enjoyed the beginner level version. Now, I'll just explain some words that are in the intermediate level text. When you move from beginner English to intermediate English, you begin to see longer sentences and more interesting words. At first, these words may look challenging, but don't worry. You don't need to learn hundreds of new words at one time. It's much improved to learn several useful words and see them again and again in different situations. That's exactly what we're going to do now. In the next part of this lesson, you will read the same ideas again. However, the English will be a bit more advanced. You will see these words naturally inside the story. Because you already know their meanings, you will understand the text much more easily. Let's learn them together. 1. Habit. A habit, something you do again and again until it becomes a normal part of your life. You don't have to think very hard about it because you're used to doing it. For example, if you brush your teeth every morning, that's a habit. If you drink a cup of tea every evening, that's also a habit. Reading can become a habit. 2. At first, you may have to remind yourself to read each and every day, but after several weeks, opening a book will feel natural. Example, reading for 20 minutes before bed became my favorite habit. When people build great habits, they usually make progress without noticing every little step. That's why habits are so powerful. 2. Gradually means something happens little by little. It doesn't happen all at once. It takes time. Imagine the sun rising in the morning. The sky doesn't become bright in 1 second. It gradually becomes lighter. That's gradual change. Learning English works the same way. You don't wake up one morning speaking perfect English. Instead, your vocabulary grows gradually. Your confidence grows gradually. Your speaking becomes smoother gradually. Sometimes students become impatient because they can't see quick results. But real learning almost always happens gradually. Example, as I kept reading each and every day, my English gradually became powerfuler. Whenever you hear this word, think about gradual but steady improvement. 3. Absorb. The word absorbed has a very interesting meaning. Imagine putting a dry sponge into water. The sponge gradually takes in the water. We say the sponge absorbs the water. Your brain can absorb information in a similar way. When you read many English stories, your brain quietly absorbs new words, grammar, and sentence patterns you're learning even when you aren't trying to memorize everything. That's one reason reading is so effective. You absorb English naturally. Example, children absorb new languages very quickly when they hear them each and every day. You don't always feel this happening, but your brain is working behind the scenes. 4. Context. Context means the words, sentences, or situation around something that assist you understand its meaning. Let's imagine you read this sentence. Emma picked up her umbrella because dark clouds were covering the sky. Even if you don't know the word umbrella, you can probably guess it's something people use when it rains. Why? Because of the context. The other words give you clues. Reading gives you lots of context. Instead of learning one word by itself, you learn it inside a real sentence with real meaning. Example, I didn't know the new word, but the context assisted me understand it. Great readers often guess correctly because they pay attention to the context. 5. Confidence. You probably already know this word a bit, but it's one of the most significant words in language learning. Confidence means believing that you can do something. Confidence doesn't mean you're perfect. Confidence doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It simply means you believe you can keep trying. Think about riding a bicycle. The first time may feel scary. After many days of practice, you become more confident. You still make little mistakes, but you're not afraid anymore. English works exactly the same way. Example, reading simple books gave me the confidence to speak English with other people. Confidence grows through action, not through waiting. 6. Reinforce. The word reinforce means to make something powerfuler. Imagine building a little wooden bridge. If you add extra pieces of wood underneath it, the bridge becomes powerfuler. You have reinforced it. Learning works like this. 2. Every time you read the same grammar pattern again, you reinforce it. Every time you meet a vocabulary word again, you reinforce your memory. This is why reading many books is so useful. Every new story reinforces what you already know. Example, reading each and every day reinforced the grammar patterns I had already learned. The more often you see something, the powerfuler it becomes in your memory. 7. Clears throat. Perspective. A perspective is the way someone sees or thinks about something. Two people can look at the same situation, but have different perspectives. Imagine two children walking in the rain. One child says, "This weather is terrible." The other child says, "This is fun. Let's." Clears throat. Jump in the puddles. The weather is the same. The perspectives are different. Books are marvelous because they let us see life through other people's perspectives. We learn how different people think, feel, and solve problems. Reading doesn't only improve English, it also assists us understand people improved. Example, reading stories from different countries gave me a new perspective on the world. That's one reason reading is so valuable. 8. Opportunity. An opportunity is a great chance to do something. Imagine your friend tells you about a new job. You can apply for it. That job is an opportunity. Maybe your school begins an English club. That's an opportunity to practice speaking. Learning English creates many opportunities. It can assist you study in another country. It can assist you meet new friends. It can assist you travel. It can assist you find improved work. The more your English improves, the more opportunities may appear in your life. Example, learning English opened many new opportunities for my future. Opportunities often begin with little daily actions. 9. Transform. The last word is transform. To transform means to change something completely into something improved or very different. Imagine a tiny seed. After many months, it becomes a lovely tree. That's a transformation. Or think about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. That's one of the most famous transformations in nature. Reading can transform your English in the same way. At first, you know only several words. Then you understand simple stories. Later, you enjoy novels. Eventually, you speak with confidence. The change is gradual, but when you look back, it feels astonishing. Example, daily reading transformed the way I learned English. This is my favorite word in today's lesson because reading doesn't simply improve your English a bit. It can transform the way you think, learn, and communicate. Now you know these 9 significant words: habit, gradually absorb, context, confidence, reinforce, perspective, opportunity, transform. As you read the intermediate level version, try to notice these words each time they appear. Don't stop every time you see one. Simply continue reading and let the story assist you remember them. That's one of the best ways to learn vocabulary. You may not remember every word perfectly after one reading, and that's completely normal. Real learning happens through repetition. Every time you meet these words again, your understanding becomes a bit powerfuler. Soon, they will begin to feel natural, just like many simple English words already do. So, relax, enjoy the next part, and let your brain absorb the language. Read with curiosity, read with confidence, and most significantly, keep reading, because every page reinforces what you already know, and gradually transforms you into a powerfuler English learner. Why you must read. Intermediate level reading is one of the most powerful habits you can develop if your goal is to become fluent in English. Students often ask me, "Teacher, what is the best way to improve quickly?" Some expect me to recommend complicated grammar books. Others believe that watching movies or memorizing long vocabulary lists is the secret. While all of these activities have value, my answer almost never changes. Read every single day. Read books that you enjoy. Read stories that make you curious. Most significantly, make reading a daily habit instead of something you do only when you feel motivated. A great many folks wait until they have enough free time before they begin reading. Unfortunately, that perfect moment rarely arrives. Life is always busy. There's always another task to complete, another message to answer, or another video to watch. If you wait for perfect conditions, you may wait forever. Successful English learners understand something different. They don't depend on motivation alone. Instead, they build habits that become part of their everyday lives. Once reading becomes automatic, learning happens almost effortlessly. I remember teaching a student named Sam several years ago. He was one of the hardest working students I had ever met. Every evening, he spent 2 hours studying grammar rules. His book was full of colorful notes, examples, and exercises. On paper, he looked like an excellent learner. However, whenever we had a conversation, he struggled. Before speaking, he paused for several seconds because he was searching for the correct grammar rule in his mind. His English was accurate, but it wasn't natural. One day, I suggested something that surprised him. I asked him to spend one of those grammar hours reading simple English stories instead. At first, he looked doubtful. He believed that using grammar study would gradual his progress. Nevertheless, he trusted the process and decided to try it for several months. The beginning wasn't simple. He still encountered unfamiliar words, and occasionally he felt frustrated. However, because the books were written for learners, he understood most of the story. Instead of stopping every minute to use a dictionary, he simply continued reading. Little by little, his brain began to absorb the language naturally. Without realizing it, he was collecting vocabulary, grammar patterns, and common expressions each and every day. Several months later, I noticed a remarkable difference. His conversations flowed more smoothly. He hesitated less often. Instead of translating every sentence from his first language, he began producing English more naturally. He had not memorized thousands of new rules. Instead, his brain had gradually become familiar with English because he had spent so much time reading meaningful sentences. This experience reminded me of something many students forget. Learning a language isn't only about collecting information, it's also about giving your brain enough opportunities to experience the language again and again. Reading provides those opportunities every single day. One common mistake is choosing books that are far too challenging. Many learners believe challenging books will assist them improve quicker. Surprisingly, the opposite is often true. Imagine riding a bicycle along a smooth road. You can move comfortably and enjoy the journey. Now imagine riding over large rocks, deep holes, and broken ground. Every few seconds you must stop, lose your balance, and begin again. Eventually, you become exhausted. Reading works in exactly the same way. If every sentence contains several unfamiliar words, your attention disappears. Instead of following the story, you spend all your time searching for definitions. After a while, reading feels more like solving a challenging puzzle than enjoying a book. That's why I always encourage my students to choose material they can mostly understand. If you understand around 95% of the words, your brain has enough information to follow the story while still learning something new. Unknown vocabulary appears inside meaningful context, allowing you to guess its meaning without interrupting your reading every few minutes. Let me show you what I mean with a little experiment. Imagine you read this sentence. The cheerful little dog chased the bright red ball across the garden. Almost everyone understands this sentence immediately. Now change 2 words. The cheerful little dog chased the bright red flinder across the garden. Clears throat. You probably have never heard the word flinder. Even so, you can probably guess that it's some kind of object because of the surrounding context. Perhaps it's a toy. Perhaps it's a ball. The exact meaning is unclear, but the sentence still makes sense. Now imagine reading this instead. Flinder braskel drinto morpal cravish. Your brain suddenly has nothing to work with. A really essential word is unfamiliar, so there are no clues. Guessing becomes impossible. This simple experiment demonstrates why context matters so much. Your brain enjoys solving little puzzles, but only when enough information is available. Reading simple books gives your brain exactly that balance. Researchers who study language learning have discovered something equally fascinating. Human memory becomes powerful through repeated exposure rather than single moments of study. Meeting a new word once rarely makes it permanent. Even seeing it 5 times may not be enough. However, if you continue encountering that same word in different books, different conversations, and different situations, your memory becomes powerfuler each time. This process assists reinforce everything you have already learned. Imagine reading the word window in a story about a family eating brie quick. Later you find the same word in a detective novel several days afterward. It appears in a travel article about trains. Every new encounter reinforces your understanding until the word becomes completely natural. Eventually, when someone says, "Could you open the window?" your brain understands instantly without making any conscious effort. Grammar develops in a surprisingly similar way. Many students think grammar exists only inside textbooks filled with rules and exercises. While those books certainly have their place, grammar is really a collection of patterns that native speakers use naturally. When you repeatedly read sentences like, "She goes to school every morning," "He goes to work by bus," and "My brother goes home after dinner," your brain begins recognizing the pattern automatically. Even if you can't explain the grammar rule perfectly, you develop an instinct for what sounds correct. This is exactly how children acquire their first language. They don't begin by memorizing complicated grammar explanations. Instead, they hear thousands of correct sentences. Over time, their brains absorb these patterns naturally through repetition. Adult learners can benefit from the same principle. Reading exposes you to thousands of examples of correct English. Every page quietly strengthens your understanding without requiring constant analysis. Another significant benefit of reading is that it improves your writing. Every author teaches you something new. One writer demonstrates how to create suspense. Another shows you how to describe emotions. Someone else teaches you how to write clear dialogue. While you may not notice these lessons immediately, your brain stores them. Later, when you begin writing yourself, those ideas appear naturally. I like comparing this process to cooking. Imagine trying to prepare a delicious meal with only 3 ingredients. Your choices would be very limited. Now imagine walking into a kitchen filled with vegetables, spices, fresh bread, fruit, herbs, and hundreds of different ingredients. Suddenly, you can prepare almost anything. Vocabulary works exactly the same way. The more words and sentence patterns you collect through reading, the richer your speaking and writing become. Reading fills your mental kitchen with everything you must communicate clearly. Perhaps the greatest gift reading gives you, however, is confidence. Many English learners believe they are simply poor at languages. They compare themselves with classmates who seem to learn more quickly. Every mistake feels like proof that they will never become fluent. Reading gradually changes that perspective. Each completed page is a little success. Each completed chapter becomes another reason to believe in yourself. Over time, those little victories accumulate until your entire perspective begins to change. Instead of saying, "I can't learn English," you begin saying, "I'm improving every week." That change in thinking is incredibly powerful because confidence encourages consistency, and consistency leads to real progress. I once taught another student named Maria who constantly apologized for her English. Before answering even simple questions, she would say, "Sorry, my English is poor." Instead of giving her extra grammar homework, I challenged her to read just 10 minutes every evening. She laughed because the goal sounded almost too simple, yet she accepted the challenge. For 6 months, she read simple graded readers before going to sleep. She didn't study every unknown word. She simply enjoyed the stories. When we met again, something remarkable had happened. Of course, her vocabulary had improved. Her pronunciation had become clearer. Her listening skills had developed. But the larger transformation was invisible. She no longer apologized before speaking. She smiled. She volunteered answers. She trusted herself. Reading had done far more than improve her English. It had transformed the way she saw herself as a language learner. Maria's story reminds me of another lesson that every English learner should remember. Progress is rarely dramatic from one day to the next. Most of the time, it's almost invisible. You read several pages today. You learn one new expression tomorrow. A week later, you recognize a sentence pattern that confused you before. None of these moments feels extraordinary. However, When they are combined over months and years, they create an impressive transformation. This gradual improvement is one reason many learners underestimate the power of reading. They expect instant results. After reading one book, they ask themselves, why am I not fluent yet? They forget that language learning is much like planting a tree. When you plant a seed, nothing seems to happen at first. The ground looks exactly the same. Yet, beneath the surface, tiny roots are growing powerfuler each and every day. Eventually, a little green shoot appears. Then the tree continues to grow until one day it provides shade, flowers, and fruit. Your English develops in exactly the same way. Every page you read strengthens something inside your mind. Even when you can't see the change immediately, your brain is working, it's organizing vocabulary, it's recognizing grammar patterns, it's connecting ideas together. Most significantly, it's becoming more comfortable with English. A great many folks believe they simply don't have enough time to read. I understand why they feel this way. Modern life is busy. There are jobs, school assignments, family responsibilities, and endless notifications on our phones. Nevertheless, when we honestly examine our daily routines, we often discover little pockets of free time. Perhaps you spend 15 minutes waiting for a bus. Perhaps you arrive early for an appointment. Perhaps you scroll through social media before going to sleep. These short moments may seem insignificant, but together they create valuable opportunities for reading. Instead of waiting for a free afternoon, use the little pieces of time that already exist. Imagine placing one coin into a glass jar each and every day. The first coin seems meaningless. The second coin changes almost nothing. Even after 1 week, the jar still looks nearly empty. However, if you continue adding one coin every single day for a year, the jar becomes surprisingly full. Reading follows exactly the same principle. 10 minutes may not seem significant today, neither does 15 minutes tomorrow. Yet after 12 months, you may have completed several books, learned hundreds of new words, and developed much greater confidence in your English. Little actions become powerful when they are repeated consistently. This is why building a reading habit matters far more than having occasional bursts of motivation. Another concern I hear from students is that they read too gradually. Please don't believe that gradual reading means unsuccessful reading. Every experienced reader was once a beginner. Every fluent speaker once struggled with simple sentences. Every expert began by learning the basics. Speed develops naturally through practice. When you first learned to ride a bicycle, you probably moved very carefully. You paid attention to every movement because everything was new. After enough practice, balancing became automatic. You no longer thought about every little action. Reading develops in much the same way. At first, every sentence requires concentration. You pause frequently. You think about vocabulary. You sometimes reread a paragraph. That's perfectly normal. As your experience increases, your brain recognizes more words instantly. Sentences become easier to understand. Eventually, you stop focusing on individual words and begin enjoying entire ideas. That's when reading becomes truly enjoyable. Choosing the right books is equally significant. Some learners force themselves to read topics that don't interest them because they believe those books are more educational. Unfortunately, boredom often destroys consistency. Instead, choose stories that genuinely capture your attention. If you enjoy mysteries, read mystery stories. If you enjoy adventure, read adventure novels. If you love history, find simple history books. If science fascinates you, read science articles written for learners. Interest keeps your curiosity alive, and curiosity encourages you to continue reading. When you become emotionally involved in a story, you naturally pay closer attention to the language. Occasionally, you will discover a word you don't know. Resist the temptation to stop immediately. Instead, ask yourself several simple questions. Can I guess the meaning? What is happening in the story? What clues does the surrounding context provide? Very often, the author has already given you enough information to understand the general idea. Even if your guess isn't perfect, you're training a significant language skill. Only reach for the dictionary when the unknown word is essential to understanding the passage. Otherwise, keep reading. The story is more significant than understanding every single word. One strategy that surprises many learners is rereading books. Students sometimes tell me, I've already read that story. Why should I read it again? My answer is simple. Because the second reading is completely different from the first. During your first reading, your attention is focused on understanding the story. During the second reading, the story is already familiar. Your brain is free to notice sentence structures, useful expressions, and vocabulary that you overlooked before. By the third reading, the language often feels comfortable and natural. Nothing has changed inside the book. The change has happened inside you. Reading aloud is another valuable technique. When you read silently, your eyes receive information. When you read aloud, three parts of your learning system begin working together. Your eyes see the words. Your mouth produces the sounds. Your ears hear the pronunciation. Because several senses are involved at the same time, many learners remember new language more effectively. You don't need to read an entire chapter aloud. Even 5 minutes each day can make a noticeable difference over time. There's another benefit of reading that's sometimes forgotten. Books do far more than teach vocabulary and grammar. They introduce us to different cultures, different personalities, and different ways of thinking. Every story allows you to experience life through someone else's eyes. You meet people from different countries. You understand challenges that you have never faced yourself. You discover dreams that are different from your own. As a result, reading broadens your perspective. It reminds us that the world is much larger than our own daily routines. This is one reason lifelong readers often become improved communicators. They have encountered many different viewpoints through the books they have read. Years ago, I developed a simple routine that changed my own English learning journey. Every night before going to bed, I read one simple English story. Sometimes I read only 10 pages. Sometimes I read much more because I was enjoying the book. I never tried to memorize every word. I simply read. After several weeks, I noticed something interesting. English sentences began appearing naturally in my thoughts. Instead of translating everything into my first language, I found myself thinking directly in English. At first, these thoughts were short and simple. Later, they became longer and more detailed. Nothing magical had happened overnight. The change was the result of hundreds of little reading sessions that gradually trained my brain. That experience completely transformed the way I viewed language learning. I stopped asking, how can I study harder? Instead, I asked, how can I spend more enjoyable time with English? Reading became the answer. So, if someone asks me today for the single most valuable piece of advice I can offer, my answer remains exactly the same. Read each and every day. Read books that are slightly below your maximum level, so that reading feels enjoyable instead of stressful. Read with curiosity instead of fear. Read because every page reinforces what you already know while introducing something new. Read because your vocabulary will expand naturally. Read because your grammar will become more accurate through repeated exposure. Read because your confidence will grow every time you complete another chapter. Read because every story gives you another opportunity to experience English as a living language instead of a school subject. Most significantly, read patiently. Don't expect perfection. Don't compare your journey with someone else's. Your progress belongs to you alone. Some days will feel simple, other days will feel challenging. Both kinds of days are valuable because both are moving you forward. Always remember this simple chain. One page becomes one chapter becomes one book becomes many books. Many books create a richer vocabulary. A richer vocabulary leads to clearer speaking. Clearer speaking builds greater confidence. Greater confidence opens new opportunities. Those opportunities can change your education, your career, your friendships, and even the direction of your life. That's why reading is much more than a study technique. It's a lifelong companion. It teaches you language. It teaches you patience. It teaches you empathy. It teaches you discipline. Most significantly, it teaches you that extraordinary results are often created by ordinary actions repeated consistently. Your future English is waiting for you. It doesn't begin with a perfect grammar book. It doesn't begin with memorizing thousands of words in one weekend. It begins with the next page you decide to read. So, open the book today. Read a bit. Learn a bit. Smile a bit. Tomorrow, do the same thing again. Keep building the habit. Keep trusting the process. Keep believing in yourself. One day, you will look back and realize that the person who once struggled to read a single page can now enjoy entire books with confidence. And when that day comes, you will understand a simple truth that every successful language learner eventually discovers. Reading didn't simply improve your English. Reading transformed your life.